If I can move to you, Professor, if you can please highlight some of the misconceptions surrounding foreign direct investment in terms of definition, in terms of what it should be and what it isn't, that would really help to drive the point home. Thank you.
All right.
Can I interrupt?
Members, thank you again.
Professor,
okay.
If you don't mind, can you turn on your camera?
Yes, sir. Okay, I'm going to turn on my camera. Okay. Thank you very much, Ari. A minute. Let me just set the camera. No, I'm seated next to very many mourners. So I think this position is better. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's
so
fine.
I'm going to give an highlight. Yeah, I'm going to give some highlight on the misconception about foreign direct investment. Now, all these come from what we call the conceptualization of what we mean by foreign direct investment. Now, when you look at what we mean by misconception, it means the fallacies. Now, what are these fallacies? What people perceive, the perception of people about foreign direct investment. Because when something is coming from a foreign destination, many people have very high expectation, believing that these are coming to benefit the destination communities or the economy. Now, you'll find that it is the opposite. You'll find that the foreign direct investments come into, for example, into our country, like Uganda, with their own hidden kind of agenda. Now, I'm going direct to some of the misconceptions that we have on the FDIs. Now, one of them is employment. Now, most of the economies in sub-Saharan Africa, including Uganda, believe that when you have foreign direct investment into our country, they come with what we call, they come and bring employment to our citizens. Yet in the real sense, these people come with their own labor. They bring their own labor force. Now, actually across all the fronts, including what we call the foreign direct aid, you'll find that the most key technical positions are taken up by the citizens of where the investment or the grant is coming from. So actually, in the real sense, the local population or the citizen do not even benefit from this kind of, like, for example, the employment from the foreign direct investors, because they come with their own, the labor force and expatriate. Then again, also, the second kind of perception or a fallacy that we have about foreign direct investment is that we assume that when the foreign direct investors come, our tax base will widen. They come and then they pay more taxes. Yet in the real sense, these are the guys who get involved in what we call tax fraud. And then they also try to maneuver the tax system. Now you find that they try to use all channels and strategies to avoid paying taxes that would have developed the economy of the destination of that foreign direct investment. Like, for example, in Uganda, you'll find that most of the foreign direct investment are offered what we call the tax holidays. Now, an indigenous investor or a local investor will never benefit from this kind of holiday. So people are squeezed, they're squeezed, and you find that at the end of it all, the loss goes to the economy, because the contribution of the tax to the GDP, and then it's the budget for every economy, especially in Africa, and a country like Uganda should be covered up by the locally generated revenue from taxation. So you'll find that that takes us back to go to development agencies like the International Monetary Fund, World Bank, to get what we call the soft loans. So in essence, it means that we do not know that these people come to really create a dent on our tax system. Then thirdly, you'll find that there's what we call export growth. Now, the belief is that when we have these FDIs coming into our country, we think that the export base would grow, meaning that the volume and then the value of our export to the international markets will grow. Yet, in the real sense, when these people come, they suppress our local the local production from our local investors, meaning that the economy will never make money through export. Actually, they actually suppress what we call the export promotion. They suppress the export promotion by actually saturating the market, the international market. Then also another problem which I would like to bring forward in terms of the misconception is that we have a belief that when the FDIs are coming to, for example, our country, they come with a very unique technologies. Yet in essence, the technology that we assume that they are bringing to our countries are actually not in existence. Now, when they come, they can decide to adopt our local technology, which are being used within the different sectors to grow their investment. Really take as technological innovation. Then also some other kind of misconception that we have about the FDIs is that we have a tendency of believing that when the FDI comes to our market, there is what we call market expansion. We tend to believe that these people come to create more markets for our economy. Yet, in a real sense, they come to actually.
Yes, Professor, we're losing you. Hello? I think we have lost the professor. I don't know if
Professor,
Professor, if you can check your
audio.
connection, please. We've kind of lost you.
Professor.
We can't hear him at all.
Yeah, I think we have lost him. If he sorts the connection and comes back, then we will allow him to. Yeah, we will allow him to complete. Yeah, but I think he was making very, very valid points and really enlightening all of us and driving the point home very well. I think what I really wanted to add at the end of that. Anyway, if you guys have observations, if somebody wants to make an observation in regards to the misconceptions, then I can sort of summarize and we can move to.
Let me try and jump in there.
Yes, please.
I think his contribution was valuable, but I think if you look at, let's just assume that the government has the interest of the people at heart. Let's just assume that is the case, because if we don't, then we are going to delve into a different area. But if that's the case, then I think any government would have, let's say in a situation like Uganda, where we are trying to attract inward investment, inward direct foreign investment into the country. So you could look at something like setting up a sugar factory, for instance, which they did, say, in northern Uganda, somewhere in Atiak there. If the government was operating these things, in the correct way, then there's no reason why you cannot allow the operators of this sugar factory a small window, which we would call sort of like, let's say 2 or 3 years, or even 5 years, for them to have a tax holiday in that space, because that's the time when they've hit the ground, they've set up their factory, they've probably built the infrastructure around the factory, they're looking at doing recruitment, possibly training as well, possibly even setting up some subsidiary services around the factory, like maybe a school or a medical facility. So all that could be done within the 5 years. If the government was operating in the correct manner, and that was to happen, there's no reason why we can't give them 5 years of tax holiday, which means within that 5 years, we have actually benefited from having a school, having a factory, having our workforce trained, having maybe medical facility. And after the 5 years, that is when we can then start to expect this entity to inject money back into the system. So I don't see any reason why that's not happening. And I would say operating a tax holiday is not necessarily a bad thing. And also,
I think the point Professor was trying to make there is, his point was a comparative kind of point in terms of
yes, it was.
when we adopt that policy, then we are suppressing the local capacity because the local businessmen and women are not getting this tax holiday. So in essence, you are cannibalizing them by making it a lot easier for somebody who has come from abroad. And bearing in mind, and this was the misconception I was coming to, and a lot of it boils down to theoretical misconceptions and understanding around these issues. Because if somebody's coming to my country and claiming to be an investor, it means they're coming with their own money. I don't have to give them free land, okay? They should be able to buy or lease this land from the community. I don't have to try and entice them by saying, okay, bring the sugar factory, we're gonna give you free land. That is the point when, that is the point when, let me develop the point and finish, please. That's the point when it ceases to be foreign direct investment, because the definition is very clear. It's an investment by an individual or corporation. It doesn't say anything about a state. So when then it becomes an investment by a state, say by China or by UK, then it's totally a different thing, because now the entities are very different. The fundamental issue here is we need to look at the entities. I'm not just gonna come from, say I was, I'm English, but say I was white English, and I'm just gonna come to Gulu and say, well, I'm an investor. If you people give me free land, I will put for you guys a sugar factory. Now, when these misconceptions are allowed to continue, then it's swept through even the local leadership infrastructure, that people are just desperate for money to come in the hope of, oh, it will create jobs, it will do this. But in actual fact, what Professor was saying, we see them coming with their own technical team. So nobody's getting the job. They're not trying to develop the local capacity. So this tax holiday is not even serving its purpose, okay? And he did say the same goes for development aid as well. So when these projects come, I don't know why the country director has to be from where the money is coming from. That's totally wrong. We have people with PhDs. We have very qualified people in Africa who can manage these projects and run them based on what you instruct them to do. So really, this whole perception of, oh, yeah, because the other alternative is we can develop by building our own local capacity. Like that would break down to if the government has the goodwill of the people at heart, like you said, Charlie. Government can mobilize the local community and they can do this. You know, it is very possible.
Can I come in, if you don't mind? Because
yes,
I'm still on the same point. So I think what I'm saying is, because the professor said most of these companies, when they come in, they do not necessarily expand the export growth, they do not expand employment, they do not expand value in terms of the quality of the product. I tend to disagree with that, because we are looking at an environment in our country at the moment where we haven't got any proper investment to speak of. Now, this sugar factory I'm talking about is standing in the middle of nowhere. And when you look around, what is the nearest factory or industry to that sugar factory? There's none. So what I'm saying is, if we are operating the system correctly, there should not be any tax fraud. Yeah, the tax holiday will just be an incentive. I agree with you. We should not be in a position where we are giving away land to an investor to invest on. We shouldn't be doing that. But where we haven't got investment in the first place, and we are trying to entice people to come and set up a system which can at least address some of the key problems that the country is facing, like unemployment, like lack of education, like no medical care.
No,
I
the
think we
thing
should.
though, Charles, the thing is, Charles, that's where the misconception is. And for me, that's where you're getting it wrong. Because
I don't
an
see the
investor who
misconception
is
myself.
after profit, no, let me finish. An investor who is after profit couldn't care less about your health, couldn't care less about your education, as long as he's able to get the human resource to do his job. His only motive there is profit. Now, whereas for development aid, and that's what gets managed by government, and that
Professor,
has its own
feedback
issues,
shortly.
that is what now gets to be used to develop the local capacity in terms of education, healthcare, large-scale infrastructure such as road. Investors are not interested in that. Those are things
Hello,
that government has
Professor
to
is
do.
Do you
back
know where
online.
our problem is? Do you
Members,
know where our problem is,
Professor is back
Mr.
online.
Moderator?
Yeah, it's
Our
okay. It's
problem,
okay.
our problem, and I agree with you. Our problem is that, and you're quite right. The private investor doesn't have much interest in any of these facilities because they are sort of like handouts to our people. So, but what I'm saying to you is that it is we who should put the conditions in place for these guys to follow. And that's why I began by saying, assuming the government has the interest of the people at heart, which it doesn't, because we all know that these so-called investors have teamed up with government officials and high-ranking people within government who are getting some of the profits, dished out to them. So, this so-called investment is not being operated in the way that it should. That is the long and short of it. Because if it were,
Exactly.
then there's no reason why we should have any of these problems. We should not be giving out land for free. There should not be any tax fraud. Technology coming into the country should benefit the economy. There should be market expansion. All of that we should be benefiting
Fantastic.
from if it was operating in the right way.
Fantastic.
We all know that it's not operating in the right way.
I think
Exactly.
my understanding of the situation is when these companies come or when they target a country, besides the need for resources and whatever is bringing them, the need for expanding their market or the need for cost reduction or whatever is motivating them to come to a country, they carry on what they call a country assessment. And I believe that is the same for private investors, and that's the same for the aid agencies. Now, in this country assessment, now I'm not very somebody who experience will explain that a bit more. But I think in this country assessment, they look at political stability, they look at economic stability, they look at social, they do what they call a PESTO or a PEST analysis. And they look at social issues such as attitudes towards sort of the gay community, human rights record. And they do all these things. But like you say, where the system gets flawed is then when they come and collude with certain powerful figures in a government that is vulnerable.
Pretty much what best benefits
Thank you.
them. In other words.
Thank you. Now, Ari, I'm back.
Yes.
Oh, sorry about that.
Professor's back online.
Yeah, I'm back online now. I don't know where I stopped exactly because my network went off. Thank you very much on that.
You were talking about market expansion, and you were saying there's a misconception that when these companies come in, we will benefit from expansion in the market.
Thank you very much, Charles. Now, what is happening is that I want to go back to what our brother was trying to talk about, what we call the environment, analysis of the environment. Now, before these FDIs come into a specific economy or environment, they do what we call investment analysis. Now, when they conduct the world investment kind of analysis, the World Bank actually has what we call a report which is called World Bank Investment Climate Analysis. Now, the World Bank Investment Climate Analysis gives some kind of specific overview about each of the countries and where the FDIs can have what we call the investment destination. So based on that kind of report, different tools like the PESTO, the SWOT analysis, you'll find that a specific FDI will make a decision on whether to go and start investment in this kind of economy or not. Now, during that kind of analysis, what happens is that these FDIs connect with the so-called politician in this country, in all these countries where they want to go and do investment. And in essence, they collude, they do what we call collusion with the politician. Now, after that, you'll find that they begin to maneuver certain kind of, for example, certain kind of what I could say conditions that can make these economies to benefit from the FDIs. Like, for example, they begin to maneuver how to evade taxes through what we call probably getting the tax holidays for the first 10 years. You see, a company can come to Uganda and it operates for 10 years without paying taxes. Now, how does the economy benefit from that? So virtually, you find that the belief has been saturated in such a way that the benefit to the economy is actually, it slumps up to probably in a negative kind of trend. So actually, you find that instead of growing the particular kind of economy, it actually sucks the economy. And then you find, for example, like Uganda, the GDP keeps on getting stuck. Actually, it gets stunted. There's no kind of very observable kind of growth in the real gross domestic kind of product. That is why you find that the GDP for Uganda actually fluctuates between 5, 6, and 7. And you will find that a country like Tanzania recently, it was moved by the World Bank. It qualified to become a middle-income country because their political system does not accept those kind of maneuvers. So basically, this is something which is really very key. We need to make our people to really learn from this. Thank you very much. That's my brief submission.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor. I think you've driven the point home very well. Except the other thing that I think we all forgot to mention is the credit rating. I don't know what it's called now. There's a specific name for the World Bank credit rating, where certain countries are then classed as a no-go area. But it almost looks like to the executives of these companies, they see this as soft spots, soft landing spots, and coming to exploit, because they know these economies would be desperate. Because once the World Bank credit rates you a certain way, then it becomes very hard for you to get money from the World Bank. That leaves you exposed to having to do everything to attract these foreign investors to come. And I think Uganda is one of those blacklisted economies right now, really. But then you've got to ask yourself, why is it there's too much? And China doesn't care about this credit rating, but it's meant to be one of the good indicators.
Actually, what I would like to supplement is this, my brother, is Jeffrey. That you find that, yeah, Jeffrey. Jeff, you see, what happened is that we have what we call the financial sector indicators. Now, under the financial sector indicators, we have specific indicators. We have what we call the assets, and then we have what we call the liabilities. Now, those indicators are used for what we call the credit rating, of the financial sector. Now, I'm sorry because I went off. If I would like, if I go back briefly to my last point, I was trying to talk about capital. Now, the fallacy and misconception is that when these FDIs are coming, like for example, to Africa, say Uganda, that these FDIs are coming with 100% of the capital components. Now, yet in the real sense, most of actually, if not all, come when, for example, they have like only 30% component of their capital. Now, where will the 70% come from? It has to come from within our financial system. Now, you find that because of some kind of political influence, these commercial banks and the credit houses are preempted to give the 70% component of the money, which will constitute the capital for these FDIs. Now, what impact does it cause to the local investors? It means that the level of private sector, the credit to the private sector will go down, and then some credit to the private sector will not be approved. Now, which means that the capital base of these local entrepreneurs and producers will go down. And what will happen? It will automatically face a problem of survival. So those kind of things are very, very critical, as you've mentioned, Jeff. So briefly, those are some kind of overview about the capital aspect of the FDIs and its misconception. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Professor. I think now that makes more sense and highlights how exactly why exactly Africans are not benefiting, because a lot of academicians seem to blame the fact that, oh, Africa has weak financial systems, they're unable to absorb FDI and all this nonsense. But actually, there's a lot bigger factors going on underground that nobody seems to be aware of. The time is against us now, so